So, hey guys, this is Simon with Trading Perform Coaching doing a coaching session with Ben, aka Red Ben Trader. Do I got that right, Ben? Red Ben Trader?
Yep, you got it.
And I believe this is our fifth coaching session, isn't it? Fourth or fifth?
Boy, could it be five? Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah, it's gonna be our fifth coaching session. So, Ben, if you can kind of just update everyone as to just as we're getting started, what's been your progress since you started with the coaching, and
Sure.
has it helped your trading? Made it more difficult mentally or easier mentally? Made it easier to find your setups, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll jump into the coaching session.
All right. Yeah, no, since starting coaching with Simon, my trading has totally evolved in like exponentially compared to what it had like the year before. I mean, I now know when I should be trading, when I shouldn't be trading. I know also how to evaluate my day, whether or not I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, not just with P&L. In the past, it was just all about did I make money that day, and now there's so many more ways to evaluate whether or not I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and if I'm growing, and just the process of journaling and reviewing all of the setups and really getting consistent. Seeing those moments of really amazing days, and then a lot of like average winning days, and very few big drawdowns. Whereas in the past it would be boom and bust and boom and bust, and I wouldn't know why. Now, if I have a drawdown, I know why. It's usually because I'm getting off process. So if I stay on the process that we practice every day, I do great. So that's building confidence for me. It's making me realize that I know what I'm doing, and I just have to only do that,
Good.
not trade when I don't have a setup.
That's great. So, hey, let me ask you. So, it's always really interesting to me. Like, as I shared with the room this morning, I kind of went off process in the morning, and it really spooks me when I go off process because I know that that leads to
Yeah,
drawdowns, right?
yeah,
And but
yeah.
then there's also a skill set in and of itself of getting back on process and dealing with the
Right.
emotions that come from the frustration of having been off process. Like it takes a lot of
Yeah,
work to get into the zone, right? Like anyone in any sport
it does.
will tell you that. And then you have to stop and reframe yourself. And then you have a day
Yeah.
like today where just the volatility is so high that if you didn't have it, like kind of like for me, if you didn't have it locked and loaded early in the morning in terms of your mental standpoint, it's hard to get reset
Hmm.
because you don't get those trades where you get to kind of have well, I'll just skate on this and see how it works out because it's going so fast that you're constantly on edge on, where you have to cover, where you have to enter, do you have your stop in on time? I made, today was
Yeah.
a rare day, but I made two, even trading very small, I made two mental errors and was lucky to be able to walk out profitable today. Both of the errors were on my stop, over not scaling down my stop size after I scaled.
Hmm.
So I find that really challenging. Has it been so?
Oh,
So my question is, based on the past, when you mentioned the moon bust, has having the
yeah.
process to get back to the middle of the room, has it made that easier? Has it increased frustration, decreased frustration, or does it give you an easier path back to the middle of the road?
Oh, I mean, I didn't have a path before. Like my path before was keep trading until you're green. Like I had no idea what to do with drawdowns. I just assumed that the problem was the market, and that I just need to be a man about it and keep trading. And so now with this with a new perspective of seeing that we do have control over our decisions, and a lot of times if your decisions aren't the ones they should be, you shouldn't be trading, even if that means taking a 15-minute break just to step back, write down what you're feeling, and decide. If I was a money manager, if I had a trade desk, and the person, my lead trader, was trading like I am today, would I want him to continue to trade, or would I want him to go home? And if I would send him home, then I'll bench myself at least for an hour or two, and just being willing to sort of say, I'm not I'm not doing my trading account any favors by sitting here and trading real money. So my choices are trade sim at that point, or just do something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely makes it easier to have that, to know that everyone's doing that same thing in the room, and to see that even someone with so much experience like you, Simon, like has those days where things don't quite fire correctly, and you respond to it. You don't let yourself uh, get negative about it too much. As soon as you recognize what you're doing, you're stepping away and you're teaching us through example that that's what we need to do when we're not at our best.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. And most awesome, I think the consistency, because you're going to find
Yeah.
as you're adding capital, the P&L will just keep growing and growing as you're getting consistent. And here's what I find. I'm guilty as anyone else of trading my capital, but what I find when I'm doing my best is I pay less attention to my P&L and more
Right.
attention to, am I taking the trades on process, and am I
Yeah.
highlighting my what I call the A plus plus trades? Am I highlighting that? And then on the occasion when I don't get a setup for a long, right? Am I managing my emotions like, so let's say like this would be a perfect example here, and I'll go through the trade we're going to cover specifically, but the divergent trade here, the
Yeah.
divergent bar, that usually, so this is a great potential entry, and it was an entry on different levels, but let's just look at the divergent bar. So let's say, for example, we were looking for this trade, and what we need on this is we need that divergent bar with the triangle up almost immediately, right? And so this would be a good example of, hey, if the triangle had come where it was quote unquote supposed to come, which would have been the very next bar, right?
Yep.
You would have had that long into the end of the day for, just a fat, beautiful long side trade, right? And so you don't get it, right? So that's where the biggest challenge comes for me in following the process is, okay, I can see how that could move higher. I can see how they want to push into the close, but but I don't get the algo that I'm looking for. But then the great part for me, as we've developed this process, has been, okay, I don't get it here, but I will get it, and that will be okay, right?
Right.
And that's the one thing that's, I find a lot of people have a hard telling themselves, is if they're having an off day or they're not executing as high a level as they want to be executing. But what they tell themselves, if I don't do it today, I'll never do it, right?
Right.
And the story should be just the opposite. The story should be that your process is so strong that if you're not firing today, it'll be fine because it'll fire again tomorrow. And so many things can contribute to that. Like today, we had Putin speaking in the morning. We had the president of the Ukraine addressing Congress this morning. We
Yep.
had the president of the ECB speaking. Then we had Fed Day. Then we had Fed meeting. Like, if there's anything where there's landmines left and right, and I had to tell myself through the course of the day, because as you know, I walked away at some point in the day because I just said it's too fast. Um, and as you know, I'd rather make 10 points with a high percentage than 100 points on a maybe, right?
Sure.
And I
Hmm.
had to tell myself, hey, it'll just snap right back to normal tomorrow. And it doesn't matter whether the market's at 14,000, 15,000, or 10,000, the setups work consistently in those
Right.
setups.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that that has helped me too. I mean, I think there's still definitely times where I'm subconsciously seeing my time in front of the screens as work time, and if I catch myself, we've talked about so many times that this business is not like a regular business. You don't get paid for sitting at the shop. You get paid when you have an opportunity. You know, when you have a customer. So it's important for me to remember that if there are no customers, there's no reason for me to stay open.
I agree 100%. So why don't we jump in and start covering the specific setup I want to cover with you today to make sure
Okay,
we have
great.
it. It's hugely profitable. It's a power bar trap that involves a no
Hmm.
supply, no demand. So um, I'd rather get out of today because the range was so wide today that we'll use yesterday as the example, and we'll kind of go from there. And so let me give you the elements that we are specifically looking for. And I'm going to go through ES and I'm going to go through NQ. So right over here at the top of the hour, we have setups going both ways. So what I'm watching for is the market's going up and down. The first element I'm looking for is that within 2 bars, and I'm going to cover the divergent trade after this. Within 2 bars of the apex, so there's two positive bars, and you get the apex for the short, or for the long, you're looking at the last 2 bars down, and of those last 2 bars to the low, You want to have a no supply, no demand like this. So those are the pink and purple bars. They're the same algo, as you know. Just so for people watching new, the pink just
Mhm.
indicates up and the purple indicates down, but it's the same algorithm, right? And so the next component that we want when we're looking for that is we then want that to be stopped out. It can be stopped out by just one tick. We just want it stopped out and then close back in. Okay, and then the element of the
Right.
close back in has two components. One component can be an algorithm with a star or a speed bar on it,
Mhm.
and the other one can be if it doesn't have the star or the speed bar. So this is the star for again for those who aren't watching, and a speed bar is either yellow for a downside speed bar or baby blue for an upside speed bar. The next component that we're looking for, if that doesn't have it, would be the triangle, right? So it's either the triangle's the entry, okay, and then the stop goes back. This is the only place where there's a rub on this. The stop goes back to the top of that bar. Okay, so the
Right.
stop can be on NQ can be pretty substantial, 20 to 22 points, and I'm going to talk about how to minimize that stop if possible, and I'll discuss the scales as well. But first, let's just look at a couple of examples of entries and get evidence to our brain that the trade works, right? So
Right.
and as always, right, we're always having some kind of bias, whether we're looking for a short or a long or what have you, right? So, and then the other thing that people are missing, especially when I see them come in new to the room, and I'm not going to cover the more advanced setups until the very end with this, but this is a legit entry, right? You had a no supply, no demand. You
Yep.
had a triangle down, right? And as you know, there's also there is a no supply, no demand trade here all by itself.
Yeah, I see that too.
So sometimes for new traders that causes confusion, right? So if you get a no supply, no demand, and the point of control comes underneath the no supply, no demand, that's a short all by itself. It's a bonus that it happened to have so that's a potential trade right there. So let me give everyone kind of watching home an idea. If you took this trade originally, right? Your entry, right? Your entry is right there. That went from 13,185.75, and the low on that would have been the best you could have done would have been 13,173, which is why we take our first scale at 10 points, whether it's a one to one or not, just to get the risk off, right? So I'm going to kind of take you through these sequences on this trade, right? But that sets up the better trade. This bar sets up the better trade for us. So let me be clear. This is one trade that we have in the room, right? But the better trade is if I drag this across like so, and see how I get stopped out? I'm going to make it really big so everyone can see it. Get stopped out by a few ticks, right? So see when this
Yep.
closes back in and there's a star underneath? Your entry is on this bar. The entry is 13,185.75. This one goes from 185.75 to 63. So if you're not familiar with using range, people. One of the things I see, and Ben, you have a lot of followers, and a lot of people really like to work. But one of the things they don't see is they'll come over and they're like, "Well, I'm used to using 5 minute or 15 minute bars." What people have to
Right.
understand is that this little move right here, if you shorted this little move here, that's $200 a contract. This little move right here that took place in 2 minutes, right? That's $400 a contract on regular size trades, right? And those 10 and 20 point rotations come over and over again, which is why we take a scale at 10, right? So if you enter this and you entered at 85.75 and you take your first scale at 10 points, well, you're going to donate
Yep.
that 10 points to the other half of the trade so your 85.75 goes all the way up to 95.75, right? So now your stop is basically 5 points on the second half of
Yeah.
the trade in this case. And then you'd scale off either the balance or another quarter, or however your scaling strategies are obviously different. And everyone in the room has a little bit different scaling strategy. But the point is that this pattern repeats over and over again, and I'm gonna show you. So if you look off to the left, right? So you got to remember to mark this off. Once this comes in and is established, when we put a line like this, we're actually hoping this gets stopped out, right? On this
Right.
side, we got paid. It came back all the way back up, and so there's two questions. First question is, did it trigger short again? So the first thing you'll look at, and you'll see here, that in the most straightforward way that we execute this trade, it did not trigger again. Why didn't it trigger? Because on the triangle down, or if this is an algo, either one, has to close back into the apex of this trade. So therefore, that's not a short. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So no trade. But then if you look over here, right, and as you mentioned, that was really key. If you're just patient, these things just set up over and over and over again for us, right? So then
Uh-huh.
it comes through over here, and I'm not going to mention the first trade because I don't want to confuse everyone in the room. I'm sure you see it
Yeah,
there with the no supply, no
I
demand,
do.
but
I see it.
let's say that other setup wasn't there. You're now trapped back in
Right.
over here to the left with the triangle up as your entry, right? Your stop is
Okay.
2 bars back. And as you know, the strategy that I use is when it's a full 2 bar stop, I'll
Yeah.
go my regular trade size here, and I'm going to add to that trade size back over here near the point of control or the bottom of
Right.
the body to add it to bring my average cost down. And then you can see
Right.
that particular trade, that was at 9:12 Central Time in the morning. And
Yep.
that's the reason why you leave your trailers on these trades because,
Yeah.
I mean, that just produced, on NQ, that's effectively 13,186 to
Yep.
13,300 and 400 is just a great trade to
Yeah,
the
and what's
upside.
crazy is the whole time, I mean, if you look at that, the whole time you're in that trade, you're not getting any on process shorts. So I think a lot of people get confused and they're like, there's too many entries, there's too many, just learn the ones and that you want to learn, and then just use those because like if you just use these two, there's no sign to get out of that trade early.
I totally agree. Actually, what you ended up with was a long here and
Right.
another long here. Actually,
Yeah.
that's what you add to the trade for the continuation. And you're right. You don't get a short signal till let's find where our first short signal is here, right here. That's
Yeah.
our first short signal, and that's not even on the process we're discussing today. But that's the first short
Yeah.
signal, and then
Right.
you'll
And then
see
there's
again.
another law.
Right, it
Yeah.
traps back in for another long there at 10:20. Right, there's actually one, two, three setups all in that one long
Look at
right there.
Yeah, you could technically add on the triangle. I've been trying that. If
You,
it sets up in more than one way,
well,
I'll add on the triangle.
I totally agree. So that trade that we looked at 9 o'clock was hypothetical. So let's not leave everyone with the wrong impression, right? We're not
Right.
regularly pulling out 200 NQ points out of the trade. What would you say is your average trade in the room when you're
Um,
doing this?
so I generally trade on the 20 or 24 tick Renko bar. So I'm usually taking my first profit around 12 points, 10 to 12 points. And then I'd say my average trade, if you include all my runners, is probably between 20 and 30 points.
Okay, so that's on a regular size an E mini, that would be $600 on the trailer and $200 to $250 on the first scale. Is that about math's right on
That
that?
sounds
And
correct.
if you're
Yes.
trading the micros, just divide by however many micros you're trading. But the point is the numbers add up. And then, as you've seen in the room, every once in a while we'll have all the little magic pieces line up at the same
Oh,
time just
yeah.
perfectly for us, and we'll get 50, 60, 70 point. It's pretty rare for us to get a 100 point NQ trade, but 50 points we do semi regularly,
Yeah, I
And
mean, there's certainly it sets up at least I'd say an average once or twice a day. It sets you up to get 50 or more points. And I will say it's been more with all this volatility. But yeah, if I look back from when I started using the algo back in July, there have definitely been days where the algo sets us up and does not get us out for 50 plus points. That is a regular occurrence.
I'd agree. So I want to jump over and show the same trade on ES really quick using the 8 range. And
Yeah.
again, I'm going to go to yesterday. Now, ES sets up fewer trades on the 8 range, and the point structure is difficult, not difficult, different, pardon me, on the P&L. I say it's difficult because I'll just tell you right now, ES doesn't offer the same risk reward that NQ
Right.
does. I'd say it offers lower risk and lower reward in combination.
Yeah.
But you can see on ES is that this is Tuesday, right? And let's just kind of go
Okay.
here to the you'll see right here at 9 o'clock, right? And I want one of the things I really want to communicate. A lot of times I talk to guys that are boom bust traders, and especially off of higher time frame guys, and they're like,
Yep.
well, I'm looking for 30 ES points or 20 ES points, and then they wonder why they're in this constant boom bust cycle or they get stopped out. And the beautiful thing about the algo is the algo involves getting other traders. The beautiful thing about this is you have stopped someone else out, right? Like so many times have you heard someone go, "Well, I was short here, they stopped me out, then they went to my target," right?
Yeah.
If
Every
you
day.
follow anyone anywhere, you'll hear that all the time. I get stopped out all the time. I get stopped out all the time, right? So this trade, because you're at the apex, right? So these bars, these little bars with the blue hats on them, obviously those are power bars, and they tell us where there's attempts or successful attempts or just attempts at turning momentum in the market, right? So the idea is that when they turn, right, if someone shorted right here and the market started going in the direction, so you got to think about the psychology behind it, right? So first of all, someone thought, hey, they made great money. Let's just say they randomly shorted here, right, at 42 whatever 42.02, and it went down to 41.92. They're like, great, I made 10 points. I've got a
Mm-hmm.
lower high, and I'm going to come take out this low over here, right? And then the
Right.
market, what happens? They put their stop right at the high, right? So then the
Of
market
course.
comes
Yep.
up, takes out their stop, and it doesn't go to the low, but it gives a bigger rotation down, right?
Yeah.
So the for me, the beautiful part of this particular algo is it requires that a stop take place. Whoever was here is going to get stopped
Yes.
out, right? You get above, and your entry's on this triangle down. So first of all, what's your stop is the first question, and is a one-to-one risk reward available the majority of the time? So I don't care about the one-to-one risk reward, but for those who do, and that's because the win rate's above 60 to 70%, depending. Well, that percentage fluctuates based on volatility, time of year, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't need a one-to-one if I have a higher than 50% win rate, right? The higher above the 50%. So I think both are important. I think the RR and the one and the I think the opportunity, the RR and the high win rate are all important, and you'll see that. That sound kind of seems to me like it's a kind of this flag of honor that people carry around, right? I have a low win rate, but I have great RR and I can take a bunch of losses. And they talk about this high win rate, high RR as being a panacea that doesn't exist. And
Right.
uh, and I've done everything I can in the room to prove that that's not true, right? So
Oh yeah.
if you look at this stop here is effectively 6 to 98, right? So that's 8 points a stop, right? So here's the first thing I ask people to do, right? If you got this trade, did it give you 8 points, right? So you got 97 down to 86. So that's 11 points. So it gave you a one-to-one risk reward if that's important to you, right? So
Right.
the entry on this is right where I have that white arrow. You took out the stop. You entered. I would have scaled at 2 to 4 points, somewhere in there, and then I would have
Yep.
scaled on down as we kept going lower. And the reality is, if I was bearish here, and we can erase these lines here real quick since we're going back in time because they're carrying them over from today. Let me do that really quick. Let me see. Where in the world? They changed the way they had this thing done right, and they just totally uh, chart chart settings. Let's see where they hide it now.
Yeah. Advanced settings too. I think. I forget.
Yeah, but they changed on this latest update. They totally changed the way that it lays
Oh,
out,
great.
and it's
Wonderful.
been a little bit frustrating actually. So guys at
I
CF
didn't
Chart,
understand it the first time, so
yeah, well they made it harder, is what they did.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
they had it
Well, less
working,
and
and
less
then
user
and so let's see if I can pull this up. F5. Is it just hidden behind here maybe? No, it just doesn't want to do it. That's all right. We'll
friendly.
worry about it later.
That's
That's
annoying.
fine.
That's
Yeah. So just ignore the lines that are from today, the blue lines and the green lines. But the point is, we would have an idea. Like for example, this is a 50-60 retrace here from the low to the high. So that's a
all right.
50-62 retrace, and then it just reversed and kept going, right? If you
Yeah.
look through there, right? So just go through this series of trades, right? We had a trade here. There's another trade, right? Let's see. No supply, no demand, no triangle
Right
down.
there.
This did not
Oh, no
enter.
triangle.
No
Yeah.
triangle on that one. And then as you look through that course of the day, ES just sets up fewer, but they pay. So right here's your next long. See the no supply, no demand.
Yeah, within, yep. So it's out the bar right before the power bar, but it's one before that.
The one before, and then here's the
Yep.
stop out, and
Yes.
there's the triangle back in. So I want to point something out to you, Ben. Notice if you get the see when it chops back in, but it also gives you the no supply, no demand
Uh-huh.
with the POC above. When you get those two
Yep.
combined, the extensions are really big on that, and you need to be aware of that. That you can
And
really
are
get a big
you
push
just
on that.
entering on that? Are you waiting for the triangle there then when you see that no supply, no demand
No, I'm
POC
in
above?
right here.
Are
Once
you
I
just,
see that no supply, no demand,
that's what
I'm
I'm
in
doing
right
too.
there.
Okay.
I just assume the
But I see what you
triangle.
mean when it's both. It's yeah, I can see why. Okay, that's cool.
Now I might stack up that trade when I see that, right? Like I might take it on
Hmm.
one and then go, I've got the other because I know when I have two separate algos
Yeah.
combined at one location,
Yes.
that I have a chance for a very powerful move in the other
Okay.
direction. And then when you look over here, this is where I see newer traders get frustrated. They go, well, I wanted this to be so. See this right here? That
Right.
didn't set up exactly right. So um, this is still actually valid because see how the bar
Yeah.
up never broke the plane of the up bar? It just kind of did a two
Okay.
step there, and then it got above. And this wick is really important to this power bar. Okay, so this is the adaptation. You can mark that down. That's 10:41 a.m. on the 15th.
Okay.
If you can have a plane across the bars and then that plane gets broken and closed right back into, and then you get the
Yes.
triangle down. That is so
Okay.
so that sets up a valid apex, and then this does become valid right over here, right? You stopped it out. So I got to tell you,
Oh.
so I want to make a little counter step here. I would have shorted this speed bar right here. I would have gotten
Hmm.
stopped out and had to immediately
Hmm.
reshort when it closed back in. So the rule is, if you take a trade, you have to be willing to take it twice in the same location. And the reason is because
Right.
look at the extension to the downside that this ends up giving. It's just a monster trade to the downside
Yeah.
prior to the
Yep.
reversal. The other part about this little stutter step is that occurred over New York lunch. And again, my hesitation on trading over New York lunch is that you have to be willing to tolerate the the jinx moves that come up and down just because there's fewer participants over New York lunch. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
That totally makes sense.
So then as your let's see, and then if you look over here again, so the other thing you had to keep up with for this move over here, remember you had the no supply, no demand on the corner here, right?
Right
So
there.
all that's why you see me going out through the rim through the day and going, okay, I'm going to mark that off so I make sure I have it when it comes over. So this is
Uh-huh.
a speed bar right here. Close back in with a speed bar. That's long
Totally.
right
Look at
there.
that beautiful trade.
Yeah, and that takes you from 12. So the reason why I want you to should be pretty obvious why. And by the way, you got an additional opportunity for the short over here as well as it stopped out
Oh,
here
yep.
and pushed it to the downside. So I want this
And
trade to go to
that's
the
about a
top of your
50%
list,
retrace, which is kind of nice too. So you'd know to expect it there.
right? So what I tell everyone and what I'm telling you, right, is if the number of trades or if you're having a bad day or you're having a hard day, right, fall back to this. And this is the reason why. Look, I can go anywhere on this chart. I'm going to do something here real quick. Of course, I'm not going to do something here because this isn't working. Hold on, let me see if I can find this really quick. They're not letting me manipulate this, and I don't know why. It's really just annoying the daylights out of me.
Well, while you
Um,
look for it, I can tell you since you introduced the no supply, no demand setups, I've been using them regularly, and every single day they are setting up, whether or not it's super volatile or relatively um, gentle. It's they're still setting up. So I from my personal experience, I can definitely say you would do just fine only trading this setup.
yeah, so I don't know what's going on with this. I'm going to have to contact CR Chart because I don't have much more data back. I keep my charts pretty thin, but even if you go
Right.
back here to look at Monday, right? So this is
Okay.
a great example. Like, look at the short. So look at this sequence up here. Let's say we were looking for a short as the market's progressing to the upside, right? So this would be the first place we're going to look for a short. And I want to show the stops too because they're potentially important, right? As you're going through the day. So this would be one potential short location, but then this is valid too. See this? So this gets stopped out. What do we need here to make this trade work?
A triangle.
We need the down triangle. We need the down triangle right there, and it just didn't give it
Yeah,
to
it needs
us.
to come right there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So then it comes up, and now you get your no supply, no demand within 2 bars.
Yep.
Take out now again. You'll notice, right? You have the other
Oh,
algo too. No supply, no demand. Point of
yep.
control underneath. Guys,
Look at that extension.
you have to hold for that extension. Yeah, that's just monstrous downside extension, and a
Yeah,
great
I got to
trade.
get better at that. At trusting that it just because it's only been moving in a 4 or 5 point range doesn't mean it won't quadruple that if everything sets up.
Uh,
And
uh,
it's not that I don't see it; it's I don't trust it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And so, it just depends on who you are as a trader. The whole goal of the algos is to get the consistency, stop that boom bust cycle, right?
Yeah.
And you'll notice if you look back here, let's say you're only an ES trader, and you look back earlier in the day, like so you'll see. So see this right here, where you had look how often that same pattern repeats. So like
Yeah.
at 8:30 in the morning, and just so y'all know, if you come in the room, I don't trade 8:30 in the morning, right? But no
Right.
supply, no demand, right? Doesn't close back in here. But notice
Right.
the triangle back up, closes in to the apex. Do you see that? It gives you that
Okay.
beautiful rip to the upside. And
Cool.
then you
So
give,
even though there's some other bars, that's cool.
yes, and then if you give the no supply, no demand, take out the apex,
Yeah.
right? There's a triangle up, but I would have been in on this speed bar right here.
Sure.
There's a triangle up. That would have given you the push to the upside again. And look at the extensions that are going through there, Ben. So
Yeah.
it's no wonder that I'm trying to push you to get the trade. The only exception I'll make to this is see when you have this apex over here and it can't quite take it out, and then it forms a
Yep.
lower apex over here. These have a higher stop out rate when it does this little
Okay.
pattern. It's hard to remember. It
Okay.
kind of looks like a little cup and handle there, and the short side fails on that cup and handle for whatever reason. But then again,
Yeah.
it came right back there at 9:52, and it also works beautifully in the European session. I know because of your time frame, a lot of times you're potentially up at London Open. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
find this for London Open here real quick at 2 a.m. my time. There's London Open. So if you're looking at London Open, so here's 2 a.m. I don't have a long setup, right? But there's my no supply, no demand.
Okay.
Trade's taken out. Here's my speed bar
Speed bar
back
down.
down, and you're paid, right? Here's your,
Cool.
um, this was no supply, no demand, by the way, at the apex. They got stopped
Oh
out.
yeah.
They closed back in with the speed bar for the long at 3 a.m.
Wow.
And then it did not set up over here, right? See that? It just did not set up over here. And the
Did
short
not.
did not set up. And that's so this is when I get pushback from people, they're like, well, what about this? Nothing's set up over here. And my response to that is, well, yeah, that's true. Nothing did set
Right.
up. That's
Yeah.
the price you're going
Yeah.
to pay
You're
for
not gonna.
staying on
Right.
process. So I'll have people go, well, I knew it was going to go up there. And the question isn't whether you know it's going to go up. Like how many times, our memories work so selectively on how trades work, right? When we read the market really well, right? We go, well, I knew that was going to happen. But then when it goes against us, so what? The question is how, if you can read the market so well, how do you get to this boom bust cycle? Becomes the question, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can
Right.
read the market, how many so many of us have boom bust cycles, right? So here's what the deal is.
Yeah.
I've humbled myself and just gone the price action in the algo knows better than I do because you can look at this whole
Yeah.
sequence through here and you can go, well, it didn't set you up for the long all the way through here, and it didn't set you up for the short all the way down through here. And I'll go, yeah, it didn't. Not on this range, it didn't, right?
Not on this range. Right. Exactly. Not on this range. And this is a good example of why NQ. Yeah, for a long time, I avoided NQ because I was afraid of it. It felt too fast. But
Right.
once I really learned just a few setups well, I realized there's just more opportunity on NQ because even when things aren't moving a lot, it sets up more often. If you can keep your eye, if you can focus on just looking at the setups and not watch the DOM bounce all over the place and get dizzy, uh, NQ just is the better trader lately.
I totally agree, and it's not always perfect. So like you can see some
Right.
examples. So just so people aren't like, oh, it's all wins and he's just showing all wins. So I don't mind showing the losses, right? So this is a valid long right here, right? So this is valid long, and you say, well, it stopped over here. So my point is
Right.
always scaling's important, right? This is why trading one
Yeah.
contract is so hard. So this trade, there's a no supply, no demand, stopped it out,
Okay.
closed back in with a speed bar. Your entry is
Yeah.
13, 238.50. It extends up to 13, 252. So that's, let's see, 12, 22 points a stretch.
Yeah.
That little space right there is $400 a contract, right? It,
Right.
it does stop it out. There is no opportunity for a trap back in unless there's another algo there. You and I know what it is. Let's not cover it because I don't want to distract from
Okay.
what I'm trying to teach you, but I know you see it.
I
But
do.
and that's okay, right? So there, worst case scenario, you either got your scale off, you got two scales off, or you took the whole thing out. Because some people just go, hey, $400 and I have two contracts. That's $800 for the day, and I'm pretty happy. I'm off to work or I'm off to enjoy the rest of the day. You don't have to sit
Right.
here and pound the thing all day long, right? But then when you look over
Yep.
here at 755, right? No supply, no demand.
Uh-huh.
It's taken out. So your entry is, I don't believe it's on that speed bar because I don't think it closed back in. Oh, it did just by
Nice.
a hair,
I like a tick.
by a tick. Realistically, I'm in on this bar right here
Okay.
and not here
Okay.
because I mean you're having to make a judgment call pretty quickly there, and that's a hard call to make. But I gave you a beautiful entry. I mean that right there, that
Right.
entry is from uh, 95 down to 41. That's 1,000. This little move right here, it's $1,000 per contract, right?
Yeah.
And again, you'll see over here to the left. See how you had your no supply, no demand at the apex.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just the most beautiful trade. Takes it out,
No.
closes back
Yeah.
in. So this was a little funky. Okay, so this is a divergent bar, that blue bar right there. You can add that to your A++ setups. It's a one bar stop.
Mm-hmm.
The triangle
Mm-hmm.
was delayed. When you take this trade, you just have to commit to the one bar stop. But again, you can see that was another 50 points worth of P&L to the downside. Again, I
Okay.
wouldn't have traded that at that time. That was right at the open. I don't trade, and I don't suggest trading the first 30 minutes unless you're a very seasoned trader and you're willing to trade. Certainly not in the first 10 minutes. But again, you'll see over here where, see how it takes out the apex, it closes back in with the speed bar right there. This trade, two
Yeah.
bars from the low, takes it out, closes back in. Just home run trade, and don't try. This goes back to the conversation I've had with a couple of newer members in the room with moving the stops. Don't move the stop. Just take the punch. Would be my suggestion because the RR is there and it's fantastic.
You're breaking up there, Simon. I lost that last line there.
I was going to say I'll see a lot of people move the stop. They'll move the stop in
Ah.
an effort to
Yeah.
avoid this little switchback, right? But you're
Okay.
leaving a lot of money. I say take the scale. And this is why when everyone asks me, have you moved the stop? Have you moved the stop? I just won't move my stop. It's just not worth it. And and yeah, and one of
Yeah.
the gentlemen who's newer in the room, he sent me a message, and I want to tell you this because he said he came in the room because of you, Ben,
Cool.
specifically. He was from London, and it's a seam, and he sent me a message the other day. Let me see where he sent it. He sent it to me. Actually, so I can't show you the message because he sent it to me on WhatsApp. But what he did was, let's, okay, what he did was, okay, he said, what he wrote was, really enjoy the room, already adding to my discipline, much calmer whilst trading. And then he's talking about how he took a short at 42.45 on the dot this morning and wrote it down to 41.90 on cash prices. So he's trading out of
Nice.
London, as you know. But I just want to let you know the people you have sent to the room who have followed through have done very, very well. And
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, and just seeing quite a few people who not too long ago. I'm not going to say they had no idea what they were doing, but they were kind of where I was a year ago, where you understand how trading works, you understand the market, but you just can't quite get the bull by the horns.
exactly. And And I think everyone suffers from that boom bust cycle. So the last trade I want to go into in our session to make sure, are you clear on the divergent bar with the triangle up? Or do you need to go
Yeah, I
through?
got that one. I've been using it regularly. I've got a couple modifications I made to it just to make myself a little bit more disciplined. But yes, I do understand the trade.
Why don't you tell me about that?
Okay, so I am finding that the trades that I enter with the triangle, if there is a star in the same range to the left that's going the opposite direction, so a competing star, if I don't overcome that star, we tend to get a little bit of a pullback first. So I'm waiting on those to see if it sets up with like a no supply, no demand, like a power bar
Okay, so
trap
let's take
instead.
like this, for example, over here. So you have a bunch of stars all in one area, right? So you have to overcome, this would be your last down star effectively here. So are you saying you
So
want to triangle
that
up
one
into
I'm
the
okay.
star?
That one I'm okay because it's not in the immediate down rotation to the left. It's only if like right where that purple, like this one right there. Yeah. So this one I am. Doesn't make it over it, right? I would have missed that triangle entry.
Okay, because so let me ask you, would have you entered? You have multiple setups here, right?
Yeah.
Through here.
Yeah.
So would have you entered here? I would have entered on that just on this speed bar alone. I would have
Let's
entered
see. Because it's a power bar trap, or is
because
there high
you
volume
had
there?
the no supply, no demand within 2 bars of the apex,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
because
So
it
that would be
saw money at
totally
the
fine.
end to begin with,
Yes.
right? So are you bailing if you see the star?
No, no, I'm not bailing. I'm just not entering on a triangle if there's a star immediately to my left that we
Okay,
have
let's
not
go find an
overtaken
example
yet.
to see how that might help us. So, what
Cool.
about this over here, where you get this triangle and you get this star right next to each other?
So the white stars are not a problem. The problem is the pink star to the left that you're running into the competing star.
This one in the
If you
same
have
direction as the short.
sorry, let's see. I was looking at this wrong. No, you were right the first time. I was looking at it as a long.
Okay, no, that's
So
fine.
you've got a short on the triangle that is running into the white bullish star. Yeah, that one I would have missed.
Okay, and so are you keeping track of when that keeps you out of one? I haven't done that. So, in this particular example, right, this happens to me all the time. The two examples you give, it works, right? I mean, it does the opposite
Right,
of what you wanted it to do. So, can you give me a
right.
place where we can go look and see where it failed, so we know? Like here,
I was. Yeah,
would you take
it's
this with
probably when
the?
it's choppier.
Okay, so would you take, for example, would you taking that up triangle against that star there with the? So this is giving the
Um,
trap. So the thing I'm
okay.
asking, so the thing I ask anyone when you come into a room and you see a trade setup, right? So what you've got to always ask is that happening? Like you added a element when it's choppier, which makes sense, right?
Right, right.
But the first thing you want to find out is, and I have to do this all the time when I think I found a setup, is what I'm saying true or is it just true right now? We want
Yes,
less of
right.
what's true. If it's true right now, we just want to know that it's true right now. But in general, we don't want to add it to the top of the list of algos because it can run you over and over again, right? Or it
Yep,
can keep you
yep.
out of trades. So the first thing I would ask you to do is go back and look a couple of months and see, like for example, let's take this. Let's pretend this was a setup here, right? So you're gonna have the competing star there. So I see what you're
Yes,
seeing, which is it's folding when the star's there, and it actually makes
right.
sense because of what the star tells you that it's folding back up and doing a retrace, right? So what you're
Exactly.
noticing
And
is
I'm
when
trying
the
to get it on the retrace because I'm having a hard time holding on to those 2 bar stops. I tend to get spooked and then I miss the re-entry because I'm like just psychologically not in the right place when I'm like exiting a trade early because I don't trust it. And then I'm like, oh, there's the entry I trust, and then I miss it. So if I just kind of wait for that entry I trust already, and if I see the star, I'll just pass on the triangle and just wait to see if the one I really know well does set up. And it often does.
okay, so the other way, and that's fine. You don't have to change that if it's working for you. But the other way to do that is let's find a place where there's a star. So like let's actually find a legit setup, and then we'll work
Okay.
off of that really quick. There's had to be multiple. Okay, so
I mean,
there's
there
one
are.
right there, right? So what do you do in this situation? Because you're going to have all these stars pressing up against you the other way. Are you just not going
Hmm.
to take the trade there in that particular situation?
Let's see. So it comes up. You get.
That's star
I
into
could have
speed. That's star into
technically.
speed. That's star into speed bar, by the way. Just FYI.
Yeah, I
It
would have
starts at
been
one
able
bar
just
stop.
fine with taking the star into speed bar there. The problem is only when it's not a one bar stop. So if it's a one bar stop, I'm ignoring the competing stars. It's only on the triangle entries when I normally have to take that two bar stop that I'm just kind of anticipating that stutter step, and
Okay.
I'll wait to see if I get a one bar stop set up.
Okay. I'm good with that. I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. That's totally
Like
fine.
there's a good example right there. Let's see, 945. See the long with the oh wait, no, that's
I
not the
do, but
right
what you have
one.
is speed bar and a star here. See
Yes,
that?
I just saw that too. Yeah, so there's just so many opportunities.
There are no. It's
Just
all
depends.
right. I'm just not sure. What I want you to check on is to make sure that that is accurate. But also, the other thing to do is let's pretend like this was an entry here, just for pretend's sake. The other way to do it
Sure.
is so you're going to enter here hypothetically, right? So what I do is I
Okay.
leave a resting order right over here
Yeah.
to get it backside tested to get the entry to add to the trade. So
Yeah.
this way, if it does go, I've got half the trade on. If it doesn't
Okay.
backside test, I still get paid. If it backside tests, I still get paid. And the other thing I want to point out to people is this looks easy here because we're stop framing everything.
Right.
Um, as everyone knows in the room, I will skip momentum trades even though they work unless I'm absolutely positive we're going to the upside. So I want to be clear. I'm not taking these long side trades when we've already come off when we're repressing highs,
Yeah.
and unless I'm just absolutely scalping them and they're perfect setups. But also, the other part is I am mostly a contra trader. I will occasionally trade momentum, but I am mostly a contra trader. And let me tell you where the biggest benefit comes. And Ben, I think you'll back me on this. Is see where we're sliding to the downside, and we just don't get a long entry all the way through. No supply, no demand, all the way through here. See how this entire move down does not trigger a long for us, right?
Right.
That by itself, even if I don't have the short, that by itself is worth a fortune to me because I just didn't get wiped out of
Absolutely.
a huge amount of money or multiple stops in a row trying to grab the trade or trying to grab the turn, and that's where the value of this setup comes from. So
Yep.
I think you've got the setup down. I just want to make sure that you're taking it when it sets up, and particularly if it sets up and it sets up on the first bar with an algo. I want to make sure that your awareness is
I'm
high there.
definitely taking it as if I see it like that, I'm taking it every single time, as long as the location is not like right in the middle of a wave, basically. Like there's some spots, like you were showing, if we're trending, let's say, and
Right.
it pulls back 50% of the way and then does a little starter step and then takes out that power bar and then goes, I won't always jump onto that because the risk reward just isn't as good. Um, and I'm more of a mean reversion trader too. Like I have a hard time jumping onto the long when we're only 10 points from the high, like
Right.
even if it sets up somehow, I'm just not taking those often because when they do stop out, it just psychologically, I feel stupid. I hate to say I know stop is a stop, but it affects me more when I take a trade that I kind of feel like I should have known better than to take it.
I think I'm in total agreement with you there because
I'm not the only
and if
one.
you'll notice, the interesting thing is about this big down sweep is that your next trade that sets up here is actually no. It would have had to be this, but you didn't get the triangle down. Actually, I take it back. It'd have been this right here. That speed bar.
The speed bar
The
there.
speed bar
Sure,
there
sure,
would have
sure,
been the
sure.
short for the move to the downside, and then um, this had to get trapped back into for the long. I don't think it did. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Let's see if we got to stop there. Nope, that trapped back in. Let's see if it stopped
Okay.
us. Okay, so there's an example of a stop on a trend day down over New York lunch, which I'm fine with, right? I don't want to present it that there are no stops, but I will show you where. Let's see where our next trade. So our next trade comes in. Nope. Didn't get stopped out.
Yeah, not quite.
Not yet. Well, we're just
I don't
actually what
see
happened
any
here was
longs.
this is a stop right here. That was a speed bar back in for a short.
Oh
See that
yeah,
right over there?
that's a nice one with the speed bar.
And here's your short right here. No supply, no demand within 2 bars of the apex. Stopped out, closed back in with a triangle for the short.
Yeah. Okay, I like that.
And here's your next potential candidate for the long is down here. It didn't set up yet. And then
Okay.
again over here. And then again over here.
Yep.
So the cool thing about this is,
Okay.
this setup is you can actually, right, you can actually map it out as it's going along. So I want to be clear. In the last hour, I am generally not taking trades either, right? So anything I show in the last hour is more for show than it is anything else. You'll see here, see how you had the no supply, no demand? I took it
Uh
out. I
huh.
think on this day we actually took this short in the last hour, but I pretty rarely am even around for the last hour. But that's star back into no
Yep.
supply, no demand on the apex. Obviously, you got your risk off there, and then it gave you your stretch to the downside. And then if you'll look here, it actually
That's another.
triggered your long with the stop. So I'm coming from here, taking the stop over here. That stop component is really important. I get the star, and I get the
Yep.
trade back to the upside there to get paid. If I stuck around, I didn't take that trade at 30 minutes to the close. I'm not a big fan of trading, and you can see it closed back in again within the last half hour and went down.
Yeah.
So if you do trade the last hour, I'm fine with it. I start about 4 in the morning. It's just too late for me. So um, at any rate, that's my 2 cents. I think that was a good session. I think you've got it down. I'm so happy to hear how much P&L you're putting down and how smooth and how relaxed you are with your trading. I mean, you were on that path. I talked with someone when you first came in the room, and I said Ben's one of those guys that he makes money sometimes and he loses money sometimes. But he's great at accumulating knowledge about the market, but he's had a hard time
Right.
converting that knowledge into dollars, right? The knowledge
Right.
wasn't power in your case, right? The knowledge was actually frustration because you didn't have it packaged quite correctly to take advantage of it, right? And
Yep.
for anyone who's been in the room, my total goal when I'm coaching someone, when I have a member in the room, I know people spend pay good money to be in the room. And my goal is to get them profitable if they can be. Sometimes you get what you want out of the market, right? So sometimes the problems are
Yeah.
just psychological and have nothing to do with setup. Some people just want to lose. Some people just want to win and they find a way to win. But for those, so really the rooms for people who want to win are willing to make the discipline decisions to ignore trades that don't set up and then have the discipline to take the trades and withstand the occasional stops that occur um, so they can get the profitability. And that's where the big reward for me comes and seeing guys succeed like yourself. And I'm excited to see you over the next year to see what you're going to accomplish. It's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, if you would have asked me a year ago, are you the type of trader that knows exactly what you're doing in the market and just goes to work and does it and then like shuts it down? I wouldn't have even known where to start when it comes to doing that. I could read the market, I could tell you which way it's probably going, but I'd have no idea how to actually take advantage of it. Whereas now, uh, there's the only competition is going between do I trust my instinct or my read, or do I just wait for the signal? And every time I wait for the signal, I end up having better results. And so that's what I'm learning to do, even though it's kind of going against a habit that I've developed over time of just trust what you see, right? And that's true. You do want to trust what you see, but with futures, you need that precision entry. And trading without the algo is just it's mind-boggling to me how anybody does it because you need those precision entries with stops that are manageable. So it helps me manage risk and it makes things it makes going from knowing what's happening in the market to knowing how to pull money out of the market. It is that, and along with your coaching has been key for that.
Well, thank you. I'm just like I said, I'm happy to see you making money. Real quick, because I forgot to post it earlier. For those people who would like to visit the room for 3 days, ask for a 3-day pass. Just email me here at Trading Perform, or you can visit Ben. Ben will send you the email address, but it's tradingperform@gmail.com. Ben, I want to thank you for sharing this with the public too. Really, really nice that you got to be one of the nicest guys on Twitter in the trading realm. You're really interested in helping guys out, and I think that's why you have such a loyal following, and I think that's great. So
Thank you,
hopefully,
Simon. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be able to be that person who helps out others. So I
yeah,
appreciate that.
I think that's really cool. Okay, but look, I'll see you in the room in the morning. If you have any questions,
Okay.
obviously my door's open to you 24/7, and we'll do this again next week.
Thank you so much, Simon.
You bet. Have a great afternoon. I'll get this video to you so you can post it to your people. I'm gonna go pick up my girls, get to you just after 5 o'clock.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet. Talk to you later, Ben.
All right. Bye bye.